For almost 3 years, I had a regular routine of working late nights at a fast food place. My job was mainly at the drive-through window. It was fine because I was taking part-time college classes that had a mixed-up schedule. Working those night shifts actually helped me manage my schoolwork during the day. Most nights were pretty slow and not much happened, but every now and then, strange things happened. Usually there were two of us working the late shift, but sometimes I'd end up working all by myself. Usually, I worked with someone at night, but they were on vacation, so I had to work 3 nights alone out of 5. The first 2 nights were pretty calm, not many orders, and I could work slowly. But on the 3rd night, around 2 a.m., there weren't many customers. That's when I had a lot of free time, so I started cleaning up the place. While I was doing my usual work, I saw really bright car lights shining into our empty parking lot. It was odd since our restaurant closed at 9 p.m. I didn't think too much of it, assuming the driver might be lost and needed help. Then, someone honked at the drive-thru. I quickly gave them their drink, but they drove away super fast. What caught my attention was how they looked at me through the window when I handed them the drink. It felt strange and kind of made me uneasy. I was cleaning, and I saw that a guy was staring at me through the window. It was really creepy. I asked if he needed anything, but he didn't say anything and eventually left. But I still felt really uneasy. Later, while I was cleaning and listening to music, I heard a beep, but when I checked, no one answered. I looked at the drive-through camera and saw the same car parked near where I was working. It made me feel worried and upset. I got really nervous, so I hid where the cameras could still see me. A man got really angry and started hitting the window hard, which scared me a lot. Then he ran to the front door and tried to push it open. I got really scared and quickly called 911. Luckily, he stopped and drove away just before the police got there. They were really helpful, writing down everything I told them and looking at the camera videos. They promised to look into it and took copies of the videos to help with their investigation. The next day, I felt really nervous, thinking about whether the police had caught the person. They said they'd tell me what happened, but I didn't get any news. I was scared thinking about what might have occurred if they hadn't arrived on time. Being by myself that night made me feel unsafe, and it was really scary, imagining what might have happened if things went differently. A police officer came to the restaurant a week later. They told me they were still looking into what happened but hadn't caught anyone yet. They promised they were trying their best to find the person and said they'd have more police watching the area. As time passed, there was no update. More police around made me feel a bit better, but I couldn't forget how scared and unsure I felt that night. A month later, the police came back and told me some new information. They found a person they think might be involved using the video. They're working hard to catch them. It made me feel better knowing things were moving forward. The police asked me to stay alert and promised they were doing everything they could to keep me safe when I work at night. As time went by, I didn't hear much about the case, so I thought the investigation was happening quietly. Not knowing what happened made me feel uneasy, but I was thankful for the police working hard to keep our area safe. Now when I think about it, it was a scary time, but it taught me how crucial safety rules are and how much we rely on the police during tough times. That night reminded me how being by yourself can feel scary, yet it also showed me that there's always help available when needed. Before I continue to the next story, if you are interested in earning from YouTube without showing your face, or without making videos by yourself using artificial intelligence, like the video that you are watching right now, then I have a special free training for you. Check the first link in the description below to get instant access. I've been working at the graveyard for a really long time. I usually work late at night, from 10 p.m. until 6 in the morning. I like working at night more than during the day because there's more activity. More people visit, sometimes there are burials, and overall, it's busier. Also, those of us who work at night get paid $2 extra per hour. Throughout my time here, I've seen a lot. Usually, it's just kids having fun or friends walking around after having some drinks. But one night, something unusual happened. I arrived at work early to talk to the person who was finishing their shift. After they left, I did all the usual tasks to start my own shift. Then I spent most of the time driving around in a golf cart, checking that everything was fine. Weird things only happen once in a while, maybe once a month or even less. At first, everything was normal. I drove around and did my usual checks. Around 3 in the morning, I stopped at the office to have lunch. Later, when I went back out to continue my rounds, I noticed something strange near the fence far away. It was really dark, so I couldn't see much, except for a shape. I decided to get a closer look and saw a man standing outside the fence, looking in my direction. I didn't want any trouble, so I drove in a circle around the area. When I came back, he wasn't there anymore. I looked around but didn't see anything, so I continued my patrol. I was driving around the yard, which takes around 15 minutes. Sometimes I slowed down because I didn't have much else to do. I decided to go back to where I saw a man earlier. When I reached there, he was on the gravel path inside the yard. I drove closer to him, but he didn't move. So, I got off my golf cart and walked up to him. He looked around 40 years old. When I told him he couldn't be there, he didn't even glance at me. After a moment, he turned and stared straight into my eyes. He seemed really mad. I took a step back and gently touched his shoulder. Suddenly, he quickly turned around to face me. It was a strong and serious moment. I moved away and he started walking towards a fence. I saw him jump over it and go away. I felt a mix of relief and fear. Later, I drove back to the office and stayed inside a small security building. Even though it was tiny, being there made me feel safe. I sat there, trying to make myself calm down. I've never felt so scared before. I waited for some time, not sure how long, until I heard a loud banging on the door. It scared me a lot, so I didn't know what to do except call 911 for help. I didn't want to take any chances and stayed inside until the police arrived. The next day, my boss showed me the security camera video. It was creepy. After I went inside, the same person came to the door and stayed there for a long time before banging on it. He had something in his hand, but it was hard to see what it was in the video. The police couldn't figure out who that person was, but I stayed cautious while working there. Thankfully, I haven't seen him again since then. It was a scary experience, but I've been keeping an eye out just in case. I work at a fast food place that's open all day and night where you can drive up to order food. Something really strange happened recently. I'm in charge of the team, but usually I'm busy cooking or taking orders. Normally, at night, there are 2 of us, a boss and a cook. But one night, the cook got sick and nobody else could come in to help. So, by midnight, I was the only one working there. Usually, the place isn't very crowded at night, and more people start showing up around 5 in the morning. But for 4 hours, I had to do all the work by myself. I kept my headset on in case someone came to the drive-thru, while I did my usual night tasks. First, I started scraping and cleaning the stovetops. However, after a few minutes, I heard banging noises from the front of the place. I went to see what was happening, and there was a man knocking on the door. He looked inside and stared until he noticed me. I walked over and told him that the inside was closed and he needed to use the drive-thru. He seemed confused, so I repeated that the doors were locked. He didn't say anything, so I shrugged and went back to the kitchen thinking he'd understand. While I was cleaning the stoves, I checked occasionally to see if the man had left. The parking lot was empty, and he wasn't at the door. But later, I got an alert on my headset. Someone was at the drive-thru. I turned on my microphone and asked someone for their order, but I didn't hear anything back. When I looked outside, there was no car. As I was going back inside, I heard strange sounds like footsteps on the roof. I got really scared and stopped to listen carefully. I followed the sound until I found a ladder going up to the roof. I hurried to try and lock the hatch door, but I didn't know how. Suddenly, I heard a loud noise above me. and something hit the hatch door from outside. It started to open a little, and I saw someone's eyes looking through. I hurried to the front door, unlocked it, and went to my car. I called the police and kept a close watch on the place. I saw a shadow and a man at the back, but he disappeared into the kitchen. I was really scared until the cops got there. They looked around but didn't find anything missing. No stuff or money was taken. The person just broke in and left. It felt eerie, like he was targeting me. Even though his face was caught on camera, they couldn't figure out who he was. They finally added an extra lock inside. It should have been there before, but maybe it was too much trouble. The police were regularly checking the area to make sure everything was okay. I felt really worried every night, thinking the person might come back. Then, a week later, something exciting happened at work. The police visited and shared some news. It turns out there was a similar situation nearby. The same person tried to break into another place a few blocks away, just like before. But this time, there was a camera that caught him leaving and going into the woods nearby. The police looked around and found where he'd been staying. They discovered a campsite with food wrappers and clothes. It seems he had been living there. The police got a clue from a nearby shop, where a guy named Joe Miller bought things. They found out he had a history of small crimes. But this time, it was more serious. A few days later, they found him in a different place, hiding in a rundown building. He told them he lost his job and had nowhere to go. He admitted to sneaking into places after they closed, hoping to find food or money. He said he didn't want to hurt anyone. He was just really desperate. The police caught him for breaking into a place, going where he shouldn't, and having some unresolved issues with the law. They said he wouldn't bother me anymore. To make things safer, the place increased security by adding more cameras and stronger locks. Everything went back to normal, but I still felt a bit nervous when locking up by myself. You never know who might show up unexpectedly.